Well, hey everybody, today we're going to look at the NanoKontrol2 device that you're going to be using to manipulate the on-screen controls. The hardware device that's going to sit either on your keyboard or on a stand. As you press those buttons and knobs, it's going to change things in this particular template. So I'm going to cover that. So the very first thing I'd like to show you is some documentation on this, basically just a cheat sheet on how to remember what each button does. So if you go down to the Mega folder, which is found in the Finder, you click on Mega, what you're going to find is I've put a controller mapping document right here. So let me double click that and pull that up. All right, so what we can see is that this is a graphical representation of the controller itself, and then it has a number that's assigned to the description of what it does. So for example, this number 16 right here, that changes the piano tone. If you wanted to know where the master volume was, that's number 7, which is located here. So this document should give you a real quick way to reference what each of those buttons is assigned to in case you ever forget. So hopefully that's a good quick tip. I'm going to show you next kind of what some of the more important buttons do that we haven't quite covered yet that you're going to find yourself using. Some of these buttons are going to be used less frequently, but they can be extremely important when you need to use them. All right, so let's look at the template here. So when you jump into this template, there is a section that I think we're going to start with first, and that's going to be this bottom left section here. And let's look at the buttons that are here. So we have a panic button, a tempo button, transpose button, and then we have a song button that goes previous and next. So let's start here. So the very first button is a panic button. So this panic button is located on our controller, and let me pull this up again one more time. So here's another graphical representation of it right here. It's number 43. So it's this very left transport control here. If I hit the panic button, what that's going to do is it's going to stop anything from ringing. So let me give you an example of what that actually does. So let's play this piano sound and then hit panic, shuts it off. So anytime a sound gets stuck, or maybe there's some issue with the MIDI going into the control or into the system, and there's a glitch, and a note just keeps ringing even though you've left your or lifted your hands off the keyboard, you can hit panic, and that will stop all the sounds that are currently sustaining that you don't want to sustain. The next button is the tempo button. So the tempo button, when we look at it, is located actually right here. CC45, it's this stop looking button right here on the right side. When I hit this button, what you're going to see is the tempo changing. So I'm tapping it in tempo. The way you can kind of get an idea of what it does is, especially when you're doing songs that have maybe like a type of rhythm or a time-based element to it. Let's go ahead and pull up one that does that. What you're gonna hear is that those tempo-based items are going to manipulate to the new BPM. All right, so let's listen to this. Now let's do it faster. Let's do it slower. All right, so that is your tap tempo button. That will change the patch tempo in a way that's very, very simple. You can just tap on it as you're doing the song. Okay, the next thing that we want to take a look at is the transpose button. So the transpose button, unfortunately, I do not have a knob or an extra knob on this controller. All of the knobs are used by other functions. So I don't have a way to map a knob to the circular button. So if you need to transpose, the real quick thing to do is just take your mouse and move this button. So by sliding the mouse up or down, you're going to be able to change the default key of the song. So let's listen to what happens if I, change that down a half step. So I'm going to start in the regular key. All right, now let's try it down a half step. Great, so that's what the transpose button does. It allows you to take the patch and change it to whatever key you want. Just make sure that if you do make a change on a specific patch, that you go to File, Save, and that way, when you move from patch to patch, it will always remember what you set it at. Okay, so the next couple buttons are the previous and next buttons. These buttons on the Nano Control are located here, CC58, CC59. So these two buttons right here allow you to move from song to song. That's going to be extremely important as you're moving through your set. So that's how you navigate the different songs that you're working on or playing through. When you're in the perform mode and you're looking at the set list here, this is exactly what you're going to use to make those changes and have things move around. So let's get out of here. All right, great. So those are the main buttons in that section. There is one more set of buttons that I want you guys to be familiar with, and that is the buttons that change tone on the different layers on each patch. So let's go back to our keys module. What you're going to notice is that there's 3 buttons, 1, 2, 3, next to each fader. And each of those buttons can have a name. And what those names are is they're basically sound modifiers. So let's hear what a piano sounds like regular. All right, now let's see what happens when I hit the button on my Nano Control that corresponds to the octave button. All right, so what that did is it made the piano an octave piano. So I don't have to actually play octaves. I can just hit a key and it triggers octaves. Makes it really simple for you to play some of these really complicated octave parts if you're having trouble. You can also use these buttons to change maybe brightness. Maybe you want it a little bit softer. So let's hear it again. Versus bright. So you can use these buttons as necessary. So all of these different layers have very specific functions depending on the type of sound that you're working with. Some of them don't have anything. It just kind of depends. But anyways, just be aware that those modifiers are something that you can use and play with to modify the sound in your worship set. All right, guys. Well, I think we've covered all of the major buttons you needed to know about. Looking forward to our next tutorial. See you on the next one.